That should be the tagline. That should be the tagline. Rockstar CMO. I have a listener.
I do. But I fucking piss them off every week.
There it is. There it is. There it is.
Hello and welcome to episode 318 of the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast. I'm your host, Ian Truscott. I'm not a rockstar, but I am a full-time B2B CMO. Hope you're well and staying as sane as you feel you need to be. It's Saturday the 18th of April, and today is the 6th anniversary of the 6th episode of this podcast, which is significant because it's the first episode available in the feed. Don't ask me about what happened to the first 5. Our weekly dose of marketing street knowledge this week comes from my chum Jeff Clark as we share 5 effing things that can help you overcome the dreaded do nothing in a B2B deal before I celebrate our 6th anniversary with Robert Rose in our virtual bar, the Rose and Rockstar, and return to the first topic we chatted about way back then. But first, we need to pay the bar tab. I'll be back in a moment.
We'll be right back after this word. We'll be right back after this word.
Hello, I'm Ian Truscott. You may know me as the host of the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast, but I'm here to share that we're kicking off the inaugural MPN Podcast Awards, which will be hosted by Gordon Glenister, podcaster, author, and the Don of influencer marketing. What say you, Gordon?
The Marketing Podcast Network is a community of marketers who podcast. And we thought it was high time to recognize the podcasts that we love, marketing podcasts. But these awards aren't just about the shows on our network. The MPN Awards are open to all marketing podcasts. And this is our chance to shine a light on the voices right across the entire marketing podcast community. So don't delay. Enter the MPN Awards.
You heard Gordon. Let us know your favourite marketing podcast and enter at mpn-awards.com or follow the Marketing Podcast Network on LinkedIn for all of our updates.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Ian, welcome to the Rockstar CMO studio. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you very much. Very much. I was so intent on not falling into your normal pause trap. You barely paused, and then I
tried not to pause.
Let me try that again. I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm glad you're still good. And is springing in
spring?
The United
Spring
Kingdom?
Has been springing ad hoc. Right now, it's a bit grey and chilly and showers. But yeah, spring has been springing. I have I have tulips and all manner of spring flowering malarkey going on out there. So it's quite nice. What about you? You, I can see you in shirt sleeves. So I'm guessing it's a nice spring day up in.
It is a warm day. It's going to get up to in the 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and we have our daffodils have been popping, and other things that identify spring. It's fairly sunny. It's actually fairly dry here in the Connecticut River Valley. So even though we had a bunch of snow and we've had some rain, it's dry, and so April showers would be in order.
Wow, I remember going to Boston with my wife many years ago, and we went over Easter, and they'd had like 3 foot of snow or something ridiculous just before we arrived, and then it was 80 degrees. It was like, that's what spring can be like up your way, can't it? It can be snow and then 80 degrees.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So this week we're going to be talking about how marketing can help with the dreaded do nothing. So our B2B revenue departments, let me just describe what we mean by revenue department. That's our description of the joined up sales and marketing team. And we're focused usually on our category competitors and how we differentiate on messaging, how we match up feature for feature, pricing, positioning, and even compete on talent, how many places we work for and somebody comes and they've been hired from our competitor. But this week, we're tackling the biggest competitor, B2B deals, the dreaded do nothing. According to Gartner, 38% of B2B deals end with no decision made. And your old chums at Forrester refer to ranges between 25 to 40%. Much of that is down to what we've referred to on this show before, and I've written about FOFU, the fear of fucking up. But it can be the buyer doesn't know how to buy, or priorities in the business change and the sellers have lost connection with that. Whatever the reason, inaction is a significant risk to deals. So we're giving it our 5 effing things treatment. What say you, Jeff?
5 effing things to battle FOFU.
Yes.
Kind of rolls off the tongue. And then there was the data from a report that you sent me from Jolt Effect, which is a name of a firm, not an energy drink, that studied 2.5 million sales calls, and their report, how high performers overcome customer indecision, says that between 40 and 60% of deals are lost to customer indecision. So I imagine the difference in all these various quoted numbers is how you define inaction, because it could be truly doing nothing. It could be, well, we kick the can down the road, next budget cycle, whatever. But no matter how you measure it, if we can turn a fraction of those do nothings into wins, that would be a big contribution. So, and marketing has a role that we can help sales to basically defend against the cost of doing nothing.
Right. Okay. So splendid. So that was a good setup and some good stats there. And also the Jolt Effect is actually a book as well, apart from the firm behind it.
It's a book, it's a video, it's a podcast. It's
a jolly good book. I think I've got it somewhere around here. But yes, a jolly good book. So where do we start? What's number 1?
The number 1 is to quantify the cost of inaction. So I think, this is not only a good way to attack the FOFU, but it's also, this is probably just a good practice for every opportunity. So, give the buyer tools that can be diagnostics, assessments, benchmarks that show kind of quantifiably how would you benefit by actually making the investment, and therefore that's the cost of inaction, is you not doing that. So you want to frame no decision as an active loss as opposed to a delayed gratification. And the tools, I mean, they do need to be rational. You can't overinflate the benefits. You can't. Sometimes you need to sort of pull back on what you might think some of the returns are. And to the extent that they can be conducted by the buyer themselves, using their data, applying your benchmarks or industry benchmarks, likely return on investments, that would be a good practice. As a matter of fact, one of the things when I was at Forrester Serious Decisions, I mean, we created ROI tools for buying marketing and sales technology to help clients kind of build their own test case. And it was it was important to help them come up with quantifiable winning arguments for making the acquisition, and it has to make sense. And sometimes, again, you got to be conservative, because it's like, my gosh, looks like we could double revenue. It's like, okay, well, maybe not that, but and sometimes when you do that, even if the decision gets put into like the next budget cycle, you still have the data to make a case for that acquisition. So as the vendor, creating your own assessment tools or being aware of industry analyst assessment tools is really helpful to the buyer to get over that indecision.
Yeah. We used to, in past lives, I've worked a lot with Forrester and the ROI tools that come out of Forrester as well. And you're absolutely right. I love that point you made, is that sometimes the numbers that come out can be alarmingly good, and you have to kind of dampen them down a bit, because otherwise it doesn't sound real, does it? But it's a great point.
Even if they're right, they could be like, whoa.
Yeah, exactly. So it's got to be realistic. And then in this day and age, right, nobody trusts the vendor anyway. So it's always good if you use a third party. But and also, as I mentioned in my opening, we focus on comparing our solution with the competitors, often thinking of features rather than outcomes. And you see a lot of those checklists, don't you, from vendors where they compare themselves to their competitors, but they're not comparing the outcomes with doing nothing. So what's the outcome?
That's right.
Do you know what I mean? What's the outcome of doing nothing? So I think it's a good start that you've come up with here, that we need to build the ROI of action and inaction, right? Of what's going to happen if you don't do that. So
Two
what
sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
What do you have for number 2? Because you're taking.
Oh yeah,
you're taking 2 and 4.
That's right. Okay, yeah. So I screwed up last week as well, although I did hide it a little. No. I let it through the edit. No, so the listener would have heard me faux-foo that up. Well, my one is very much, I think, something that we'll probably talk about a little bit throughout this thing, and we talk about a lot actually in all of our things, and some of our tropes haven't come through. I mean, where's our gap analysis? But that's for the regular listeners. So I think that some of this boils down to not understanding the buyer's needs and also the urgency of solving the problem. So I think sometimes we get too excited about our product features, the change we wish to see it making in the world, and we create persona needs based on features. So we write the opposite of a feature rather than really understanding the outcome the buyer is looking for. You see this all the time, don't you? This is what our product does. And then they invent a need for the thing that the product does, right? And they're aspirational needs, and they're not based on the real world. So I think then we can fool ourselves into thinking there's genuine need for this product out there, and why the fuck isn't somebody buying it?
Yeah.
But I like how we could then use your first suggestion to quantify those needs. So if you think that you've got this bunch of needs, it'd be a great litmus test of whether the need has value or not if you can create an ROI model around it, right? So if you can't, then it's probably not that substantial, right? That's going to drive buyer behavior. And I think that, we touched on FOFU there, and I know you're going to talk about this a little bit. But understanding the persona's relationship with risk and their appetite for change, I think, is important here as well. And what is their fears if this does fuck up? So what is what's the winners and losers situation here? What is it that could go wrong for them? And really think that through, rather than just assume it's all rainbows and lollipops and, buying our products is going to solve all their problems. And also, why now? Why today? And, so I always recommend building persona-based needs. Do that independently of the solution as much as you possibly can. And also think about adjacent needs. So what else is going on in the buyer's world, so you can get a good picture of where you sit in that buyer's, universe at that time. So then you might be able to predict where they might do nothing or they might stall. Bit of a long one there for me.
Yeah, but I agree, and we often talk about personas certainly on this show we have to talk about kind of generic terms: champions, gatekeepers, decision makers. Yeah. But it's more memorable and instructive to sort of talk about them, putting the needs first and labeling them as maybe perhaps here's the cost justifier, here's the efficiency expert, here's the security protector, whatever you think is important relative to your what you're selling to customers, and so tuning into those specific needs is extremely important, and it is something that we do bang on quite a bit on this show because we don't do it enough.
Yeah, but also, I know that we've got our own structures and our own playbooks and stuff, but you need to be flexible here, don't you? Depending on what your buyer looks like, right? Like you say, it might be that in your industry, security protector is a very valid persona that you need to address, and others it may not be. So what's number 3 then, Jeff? Let me get back on stream and get this right.
Lower the risk of change. So, doing nothing often feels safer because, the status quo is familiar, even if it's currently, maybe a little bit, painful. But that Jolt research said that decisions often end in no decision due to the fear of failure. That gets to your FOFU. 87% of the survey respondents demonstrated moderate to high levels of indecision. So whether they actually made a decision or not, they had this feeling that, I don't know, we were on the cusp of not doing anything. And as the average sales price goes higher, then the fear factor is going to increase, exponentially, geometrically. And careers are often on the line. So that is FOFU in a nutshell. Is the inaction appears to be less risky than actually taking the action. So for one, I think that absolutely requires that the people in your company, whether it's you, sales, services teams, have to get to know the buyer intimately. And this is where you take those persona needs and you bring it down to the account. So what are the specific needs and concerns in the account, and how can I build trust so that our assessments and our recommendations are taken in good faith? And also, I think this almost could be a point 3B, is that this is where implementation plans, change management playbooks, supporting services can help paint the picture of a smooth transition. And when I've worked at companies that as their the deal sizes were going up and also the payoffs for the customers, these tools were essential to help build trust that the solution would go in smoothly and that you'd be there to help them guide through the process. Because that's, it's like, oh gosh, there's going to be bumps along the road in almost any implementation. And you don't want those bumps in the road to turn into a reason why they're going to say no. And I think, this is just something that's a really good tool that again, as you're in larger deal sizes, is absolutely essential to have.
Yeah. And like you say, a lot of procurement, and I don't think we've explicitly called this out yet, but a lot of procurement is about management of risk. It's simply about management of risk. And so if you can bring things to the table that reduce that risk, then your deal is more likely to go through. And I know that you've talked there about some of the things that we can do as a marketing team. But I also think, and I'm no sales guy, so maybe the sellers that are listening won't thank me too much for suggesting this, but also me referring to the Jolt Effect book, and it is actually a sales book rather than a marketing book. It says that we can actually de-risk with the commercials. So to quote their work, they say, high performers focus on solutions that limit risk when faced with uncertain customers. These can include opt-outs, refunds, change clauses, or other ways to decrease the risk for the indecisive customer. So it's working across the revenue department, isn't it? It's us in marketing working with sales on how we can just bring that risk down a little bit.
Excellent. So with that great comment, what is number 4?
Look, this is we're cooking on gas. It's like we've done this before. My 4th one is to bring proof. So it kind of pulls at a thread that you've just talked about as well. So there's I think I've talked to you about this before. There's a Medium post that I've referred to for years. I think it's been around for 9 years or something. It was written by a guy called Andy Raskin, and it's called The Best Sales Deck in the World. And anybody that talks to me is probably bored of me referring to this thing because I love it. And it's got 5 components that I pretty much know by heart now. I know I've written them in the notes because I know that as soon as we hit record, I'll forget 3 of them. But they are, so I'm not going to, but I wrote them in the notes by heart. But I'm only saying that because I just think this thing's great. So number 1, you identify the change in the world. Number 2, you identify that there's going to be winners and losers. Number 3, you show a glimpse of the promised land and what a positive outcome would look like for them. And number 4, you show the gifts that you can offer to get them to the promised land. And number 5, you show proof that we can get there. Now, the big point of that is that as a vendor, you're only talking about yourself towards sort of 4 and 5. You're really talking about them and their problem. But the point of this, and I could make an argument for all of these 5 working against this do nothing thing and this FOFU thing we've been talking about, especially if you add a bit of urgency. For example, when you describe the change in the world, you could time box the opportunity, refer to similar market trends where the winners acted fast. So you could add there's a change in the world and it's happening fast and you need to do something about it, right?
Yep.
So I think that you need to be painting 2 pictures, this aspirational story of the winner, as you said in your first point, but also the impact of being the loser. So I think, it's interesting where you started with this measuring the ROI thing. We could use that in this instance as well, right? If you do something, the winner looks like this and you can measure it like this. But I think that aside from the things we've talked about already, a critical part of this proof is, and you used the word trust earlier, which of course I love as I bang on about marketing, creating our awareness, revenue and trust. But this is the client success stories, anecdotes, and even better if they can meet these people, maybe one-on-one reference call, but if you can get them evangelizing in events and all of that, if they can see their peers, people like them, not being fired, then that's gonna create a level of confidence and sort of maybe prevent this do nothing, and they're gonna aspire to be like them. What do you think?
Well, I think real life stories of companies and people who took the risks are, they're absolute gold. And, I think we may have said this before as well, but, I've been at several companies that looked at, the champions and decision makers as people that have their own career aspirations, and they're taking a risk with you. So what can we do to help boost their reputation? Can we, use their success stories, get them into conferences, speaking, referrals, connecting them to, colleagues that are having similar problems, all in a way of helping them, advance their own careers and show that they took a risk on you and it turned out well. And, of course, one of the problems is sometimes they go off to a job and you've lost your champion. They've gone off to another job and you've lost your champion in the company you're working with.
Yeah, but I hear the opposite so many times where people move and they take the vendor with them.
Oh, yeah,
right?
They take the vendor with them. Yeah.
And I think that, you make a great point about when you're engaging with clients in this kind of, as advocates, what can you support them with, like you say, their own career aspirations? And I've seen that so many times. But also, like with your old gig, right, working as an analyst, a lot of these folks love being introduced to analysts. Analysts love being introduced to them. You've got that whole ecosystem going on. I love that.
Cool. So now we're on to our final element, or our final factor. Did we go with factors or steps, or what did we start with? We started with
I don't know.
5 keys.
They should be effing things, but you've called them keys.
Yeah,
so what's? I mean, it's me introducing you. So what's number 5, Jeff?
Number 5 is build internal consensus. So there's a couple things here. One way marketing certainly can help sales in these situations is to build out, who the whole buying team is. So using our tools to develop the context within the organization. Who else is out there looking at tools? Are you looking at solutions like yours and use our intent marketing or maybe our customer data platforms to like pull all that together so the sales team kind of knows the lay of the land, help them map out, who are the key influencers, gatekeepers, et cetera. And they're obviously going to do their own work, but marketing can help them build the picture of who else is in market, if you will. And from a content perspective, ensure that there's sales tools for addressing all the buying concerns by those key personas, as we've talked about before. So sales can help triage concerns. Also, those tools should be online in case those people are out there doing their own research. And once that broader buying team is mapped out, then you can work with sales, and the internal champion at the client for a game plan as to how to involve the rest of the buying team. And this is where typically sales or maybe somebody in services can actually arm the champion, from our generic term, with tools for doing the internal selling. So what's an internal pitch deck? Yeah. What's the ROI model? What's here's our view of stakeholder concerns. How can you interpret that for the people you're going to be working with? What's the language you could be using for selling this internally? So, kind of going back to, point number 1 is kind of having self-guided assessment tools available, either on your website through trusted analysts or something that your sales team can hand over. Is just something that establishes that consensus early in the buying process, and perhaps, because you may have them available out there on the interwebs, is that they can get them even before that you engage with the sales team. So it's something that helps put your, your brand, your trust, your ability to help the customer out there ahead of their engagement with the sales team.
Yeah, and we're talking about a lot of, a content marketing strategy that falls outside of just, horn tooting for the product, isn't it? It's like, what other supporting material can I create that's going to help the buyer buy? And that's often the difference between high performing sellers, is that they can help the buyer buy. Is what I understand. And I've seen deals flounder because the sponsor didn't know how to buy, and the seller was too dependent on their sponsor to drive the process because neither of them had built internal consensus. Because I don't think, if you talk to any sales methodology, isn't it? You don't just have one sponsor within a deal. You need to have multiple. And then I also think there's a kind of a risk for a sponsor, particularly if they're fairly junior. It's not just about the FOFU of choosing the wrong solution. It could be a fear of dealing with the internal risk of tackling the internal buying process. They're going to have to deal with different departments, more senior people, especially when budgets are under scrutiny. So maybe at the point that they sort of stick their head above the parapet and then realize, the enormity of this thing, but they sort of duck back down again, and then the deal kind of goes away, right? So I think you're right. If we can help them build internal consensus, if we can help the seller build a broader network within the business, it greases the wheels for the whole thing to spin, right? So I think that's a really good point. Yeah.
One thing that I noted in the Jolt Effect post was a counterintuitive piece of advice, which was to limit the exploration. So, as you say, you need to help guide through the process. But you got to look for when research is going into rabbit holes that extend the decision-making process and perhaps lead to exhaustion, and then leads to indecision. So that's a tough thing and that takes a really good sales executive who can orchestrate that internal buying process and make sure that it doesn't go off on tangents that lead it to indecision.
Yeah, and it's funny you made that point because I remember way back at the beginning of my career when I was a vignette, and there was a guy that had a massive binder and had all this research on all his clients, but he couldn't close anything. Right? He was just really good at research.
Yeah, really. You got to think about this. Oh shit! You just scared me.
Yeah. All right, so that rounds us off from our 5. I should have. So Gartner and Forrester and the guys behind the Jolt Effect agree that a significant number of deals are lost to inaction rather than traditional category competitors. And our 5 effing things that we suggest to overcome this is 1, quantify the cost of inaction. Number 2, understand persona needs. Number 3, lower the risk of change. Number 4, bring some proof. And number 5, build internal consensus. So it just leads us for the last agenda item, Jeff, the song this week.
Well, I'm gonna leave this to you. And you told me this earlier as we were setting this up, but we haven't mentioned it yet. That this is the 6th anniversary of the Rockstar CMO Studio podcast, and so I think since you're the host, it's your responsibility to pick the song that you want for your anniversary.
Thank you very much. Well, we did rather dive into the topic, didn't we? And I should have looked up when the first episode you joined us on, Jeff, was. So I'll have to look that up, and we'll return to that next time we chat. But yes, this is going out on the 18th of April, which, if you look back on all of the podcasts that I've done, the 6th episode was actually on the 18th of April. It's just that I hid the first 5 because they sounded so terrible. and then the guests that I'd had on those first 5 returned to the show, and I did them again. But anyway, back to the agenda. The song, I'm going to go for Nothing Compares to You, either by Prince or Sinead O'Connor from 1990. I'm going to probably play out with the Prince version because I like that version. And I just thought it was a perfect title for us because literally they're comparing nothing to
really.
That was it. So you'll be back in the studio in a couple of weeks' time, mate?
Couple of weeks' time. I think we still need to pick the time and the topic, but I'll be back.
Oh, we will do that, and I'll see you then. Thank you very much, mate.
Cheers.
Cheers.
But nothing, I said nothing can take away these blues. 'Cause nothing compares, nothing compares to you.
Thank you, Jeff. That was, of course, a tiny little snippet of Prince and Nothing Compares to You. A splendid topic there, Jeff. and he'll be back, as we mentioned there, in a couple of weeks' time. And we mentioned when Jeff joined the show, and I checked, and his first appearance was back on episode number 40, just over 5 years ago. So thank you very much for that. Right, time to wind down into the weekend and join veteran of the show who's been here since the beginning, Robert Rose, chief troublemaker at Seventh Bear, in our virtual bar, the Rose and Rockstar, as I pick his brains over one of his classic cocktails.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to the bar.
Thank you very much, mate. How are you doing?
I'm doing remarkably well. Yeah, it's good. It's all good.
But how is the... are you still enjoying the spring California weather, or is it just ridiculously hot?
It's been rainy here, which is lovely. I mean, it was last weekend, of course, but it rained, and so we rarely get rain this late in April. But we did, and there are lovely spring showers, and so it's cooled everything down a little bit. And so, yeah, the weather has been absolutely spectacular here in Southern California.
Nice. And no word on the politics, so we'll skip straight over that. What are we drinking, mate?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, skip right through it. We have, so we're going to go with so last week we went with the rye drink, and we went with a classic Manhattan. This week, we're going to go with a bourbon smash, a blackberry bourbon smash. And basically this is it's a simple drink to make. It does require a number of ingredients, but nothing that's terribly hard to find. So basically it's 2 ounces or 2 parts of your favorite bourbon. I find a good sweeter side of the bourbon to work a little better than some of the harsher bourbons, but basically any bourbon you like. 4 to 5 fresh blackberries, and then a few mint leaves, some lemon juice, and then basically you're going to muddle all of that together, the blackberries, the mint, and the lemon juice together, muddle it all up into like sort of a mush, and then put a little, again, simple syrup. The listeners know by well, I have my take on simple syrup. I don't think you need it, but of course you can put it in if you like it a little sweeter. But muddle all that stuff up, put a little bit of soda water in there, and a little bit of basically 1 ounce of soda water, put your bourbon in, basically mix it, then shake it. If you like shaking, stir it, whatever you like. I like shaking this because it gets everything all good and mixed up. Then strain it. You're going to want to strain it because they get the seeds out and all that stuff. And then put it into a rocks glass with some ice, and basically finish it maybe with a little splash of soda or a garnish, whatever you like. And there you have your blackberry bourbon smash.
Nice. And weirdly enough, and I don't think you knew this, but this week, well, you know this bit, but you might not know the next bit. I'm officially in this episode celebrating 6 years of doing this podcast.
Oh my God. Right, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Although in fairness, it's a little more than 6 years. It's just that if you pick up the feed of this podcast, it starts at episode 6 because the first 5 were so terrible I unpublished them. so but on this day 6 years ago, episode 6 came out, and then in episode 9, if you realize that we're in 300 and something now, episode 9 was when we first did the bar, and you didn't do every week. You did a couple of weeks, and then you came on the bar. You came on the podcast every week, which I'm eternally grateful for. But I don't think even you realize that it's been 6 years we've been doing this thing, right? So you came on in May.
It's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing.
And it was during COVID, which is why we have the virtual bar, which is what started this whole thing off, right?
Wow.
And the other interesting, the coincidence there is I was listening to it earlier on, and it was a bourbon drink that we did in that episode. So it was nice and neat that we're doing a bourbon smash this week too. So.
Is that right? No, that's not true. That's not true. Did we really did a bourbon smash that first week?
No, not a bourbon smash. You did a bourbon drink. I just wish I remembered which one it was. Yeah.
Okay.
But I just remember it being bourbon. So yeah.
Okay.
Maybe we had an old fashioned because we had old fashions at the beginning. But yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And the other the interesting thing is so the first thing you talked about was the importance of well, it wasn't the first thing. Yes, it was in that episode 9. You talked about the importance of having a point of view. and not suppress that in those unprecedented times, because that was what we were describing those times. That's right.
Yeah.
And it's nothing has
COVID.
changed.
Yeah, right, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And it seems nothing has changed because these times are also unprecedented. And so I think it blends nicely with what you were talking about last week before last, which was your pointy bits, right? And you talked about the importance to have a point of view. So what's changed in the last 6 years? And, it's still important that we have this point of view. Let's celebrate the 6 years of us talking about this stuff with this topic. What do you say?
Well, okay. So the first thing that we should note is that I'm gonna pull my inner David Mitchell here, and basically say, if it's any time after the president or the present, it isn't it always unprecedented times? I mean, are we always? You know what I mean? It's if we live in the now, it's always unprecedented times. But okay, but that's neither here nor there.
By the way, on David Mitchell, do you get Last One Laughing, an Amazon series in the US? I don't know if you do.
I don't know. I'm sure I do, but I don't know the series. Is it really great?
They get a whole bunch of comedians together in a room, and and it's a bit like a sort of Big Brother house type vibe, and they have to try and make each other laugh, and the one who laughs last wins. And so David Mitchell was on it, and it's just fantastic. I won't tell you who won, but it was just fantastic. So
my gosh, that's so great! I love that.
Yeah, Last One Laughing, man, you'd love it. Anyway, okay, carry on.
Yes, well, so coming back to what I think you're getting at, which is, of course, the world that we live in now versus the world that we were living in the middle of COVID, which was also sort of, let's call it a crisis, if you will, and the importance of actually taking a stand, the ability for us to have a distinct point of view. And in those days, what I was really arguing for was it's easy to fall into safety, right? It's easy to fall into safety as, and I talked about this a little bit earlier in this year, where you start talking about what brands will do in economic crises and other crises where it feels like, and this was especially true here in this country when, we were having all the problems with ICE and in Minnesota, where there was nothing that was going to be sort of, latching onto the topical, which was not going to be, imprecise and sort of probably kind of cringy, right? To, sort of ignore what was going on. And so what a lot of brands did, and this was especially true, you saw in the Super Bowl, was you leaned into the absurd, right? So in other words, they leaned so far away from anything topical or newsworthy or even remotely political, it became almost silly, right? And so you leaned into silly, you leaned into comedy, you leaned into something that could in no way be interpreted as you making a commentary on what's going on in the world. And that is important. It's important in something like COVID, and it's important now where what I'm really getting at when I talk about exposing the pointy bits is in a world where AI smooths everything over. AI typically, it creates the most probable. So therefore, and this is well known and well covered by so many people who talk about how AI writes, which is it typically doesn't write with a lot of drama. It doesn't write with personal anecdotes. It doesn't write with, it doesn't pull you through, right?
No.
Even though if it pulls your tone through, it doesn't pull you through. And so, it doesn't know that you and I talked last week and had this really pointed discussion about something and then had an argument or whatever. And so including that pointy bit, that vulnerability, that joke, that unmistakably you element into your content is what differentiates you these days. And you can start to see that happen. And actually our joint sort of colleague / people we'd love to hate, our friend Mark Ritson talked about this, and you and I talked about this, him talking about this not too long ago, which is brands leaning into the ridiculous or unmeaningfully different. In other words, putting together a stupid cartoon character or having, something weird on the packaging just because, right? So you start to do things literally just because it makes you different, not because there's any sort of product or brand level purpose to it. And that can be an effective way of bringing your point of view to bear. Whereas you bring something in to your content that is not necessarily even relevant to the content, but just it shows that you're bringing something weird, absurd, different, basically unmistakably you to the idea. And the example I sometimes use is like when I'm writing these days, of course, I love me a pop culture metaphor, right?
Yeah.
And so I will often bring like truly ridiculous pop culture metaphors to my business writing because that's something that is unmistakably me, and it's something that I think is just it may not be relevant even, like talking about Back to the Future or talking about Breakfast Club or talking about something that Drake did, maybe kind of completely unrelated, but it's a funny joke, and so you make the funny joke just to show that it's different.
But it's a fine line you got to press, because when at the beginning of what you were saying there with brands or whatever, just bringing in the weird, right? It has to be, and I hate to say this word, and I think we said it during the last unprecedented times a lot, it has to be authentic, right? Because I think that what you're saying is if you talk about Breakfast Club or you bung in something like that into your writing, it's genuinely you, right? It's what you do.
Yes.
But some of this stuff sounds to me like, the accountant that goes to a party with a loud tie on. They're still a fucking boring accountant, but they're wearing a loud tie because it replaces their personality. So, and maybe that's not fair on accountants, but you know what I mean? Like they're just trying to do something to jazz themselves up, and it's not really authentic. It's not really them.
Yeah. And people will sniff through that. I mean, because that's what AI will be good at, right? So AI, from a content perspective, if you asked it to sort of give you the pointy bits, it's going to give you a loud tie. Right. In other words, it's going so that and I think it's a great metaphor because metaphorically speaking, it's going to make your content, but it's going to throw in the yellow tie, which is completely irrelevant. And to you, if you don't understand you enough, it might be even relevant, right? You might go, oh, that's cool. I'm going to wear the yellow tie because that's going to show me off as being different. But people are going to sniff right through that. Like people, like to your point. If you're the accountant that walks in with a yellow tie, but you still talk about boring accountant shit, it doesn't matter that you're wearing a yellow tie. People will sniff right through it and go, you're still bored. You're just wearing a yellow tie and you're bored, right?
And do you think, we made a night, so what we're saying is it's very, in the 6 years and the unprecedented times of then and now, not a lot has changed. Do you think anything has changed in the time that we've been talking about this stuff? Is it different now? The point of the exposing your pointy bits now, is it more important than it was, or is there anything changed?
I don't know that it's more important. I think what has changed is that, and this is just sort of goes back to our joke about like any time in the future is unprecedented, right? So but what has evolved, let's say, or devolved, depending on your point of view, I suppose, is that the evolution of generative AI and machine and automation and the general the expression of content has not necessarily put more importance on it, but it's put more scrutiny on how you actually express yourself. And what I mean by that is sort of like we have the M dash is a great example, right?
Yeah.
So the M dash, nobody even would have thought about the M dash 5 years ago, like 6 years ago when we started this. We would have never talked about the use of the word, the use of the M dash, or the use of the phrase, it's not this, it's that, or delve, or, any of the things that sort of are signature AI moves these days. That have become under more scrutiny, rightly and wrongly, sort of to quote Ann Handley, justice for M dashes. The M dash is an absolutely viable punctuation mark, but rightly and wrongly, it has been accused of being illustrating AI. And so that scrutiny there makes it makes expressing yourself, and you have to think more about it, right? You have to think more about how is this going to be perceived, right? And we talked about this on a show a couple of weeks ago where I said the way I've been phrasing it is showing me your plumbing, right? If you show me the plumbing, either human and or AI generated, I'm going to shy away from the content. Like I'm going to back away from the content because, if you show me the beat poetry cadence, I don't care if you created it or AI created it. If it's that beat poetry cadence, I'm going to shy away from it.
Yeah.
And I can blame AI for doing that, for giving me that bias, but it's the way it is. It's now showing me plumbing. So we have to be a little more conscious of where our plumbing is showing.
Yeah. And I think that, it's hard to think back, isn't it, 6 years and think about what it was like then or whatever. And I know it's only 6 years, not like a millennia, but I think that AI, the whole AI thing and all the playbooks that we're reading, all that kind of stuff and then we were talking about this when we weren't recording, which is it's making us all a little bit more cynical of engagement that we get on social media, particularly on LinkedIn, right? Is what does this person want? Is this AI? Are they selling to me? You hackle, your sort of little, your warning signs are up. We're going, what's this? Is this a playbook? And I think that might have changed in the last 6 years, perhaps.
Yes, I agree. I'm getting, the funny thing is, so when I'm working with my clients, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that'll happen is I will give my client homework, right? So I'll be a marketing manager at some company, mid-sized company, and I say, your homework is to, come up with the messaging for the website. Yeah. Let's just say that, right? So here are the 4 pages that you need to come up with messaging on for the website. And then I'll look at it and I'll give you some suggestions and hints and I'll help you edit it and put that together, blah, blah, blah. And so what comes back is a document that is clearly created by Claude or clearly, it's got the beautiful blue formatting. It's got the lines, the lines that, you sort of see. And so you're suspicious immediately. As soon as you see that, you go, okay, well, you didn't create this. And then and then there's a second thought there. You go, but do I care? And the answer is, I kind of don't. If the content's good, the content's good, and sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. And so, but it does immediately raise your suspicions, like which it wouldn't before, right? You'd get a Word doc, and it would be the Word doc, right? And so, but now because you can recognize it, you're like, you sort of have that side eye toward it.
Yeah, I had the same, and it was actually more in-depth stuff. It was about research, about I was just giving some. It wasn't an actual client. I was just giving some advice to a company, like you do when somebody picks your brains. And I said, well, you need to come up with these things. And one of the guys in the call, he churned out all this stuff within about a day. So it was like ICP, personas, all this kind of stuff. And then I get a massive amount of documentations to review. And you're like, I'm going to need to put more effort into this than you did.
Well, that's
reading
true.
This shit.
So that's, I think that is unhidden. I think that is hidden. That is, we could do a whole show on just that, right?
Yeah.
That is something I am seeing so much now in content creation, thought leadership, as well as research and stuff like that, because it's so easy to just set Claude or ChatGPT to pump out 15,000 words on whatever. Yeah. We've given up sort of editing ourselves. And so it actually takes more time to go through all the meeting notes than it would be to have sat in the meeting. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And you as the advisor or the senior person trying to steer them, you have to read this thing, even though you wonder whether they even bothered.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
That. And the other thing, we've talked about this a lot, and maybe I shouldn't open this particular Pandora's box, but they didn't go on the journey.
No, exactly. Exactly.
Discovering your ICP, discovering your personas, all that, you need to go on a journey to do all that stuff. But anyway.
100%.
We've wandered off topic, and I think, but that's a delightful way, I think, to celebrate 6 years. And I just want to thank you, mate, for having been on the podcast for such a long time, and the amount of time you've devoted to me and the podcast. So thank you very much, mate.
It's been absolutely my pleasure. Here's to 6 more. At some point, I hope somebody subscribes to it. I hope we actually get a listener. So
I have a listener. Hello, Mum.
I have a listener.
That should be the tagline. That should be the tagline. Rockstar CMO. I have a listener.
I do. But I fucking piss them off every week.
There it is. There it is.
So, my friend, well, you've got a listener. Where are your listeners?
I don't know. You could check us out. The website is seventhbear.com.
Mm-hmm. And when people spin the dial on the interwebs, where are they going to find you, my friend?
They'll find me on LinkedIn for sure. I would love to connect with people. 6 years later, let's do some connecting with, especially with your mom, right? So make sure that one listener connects.
My mum doesn't listen to this, but anyway, and I'm glad that we've got it on audio and recorded by AI. Probably that you've committed to another 6 years. So I'm looking forward. That was an easy sell. So will you be in the bar for the next 6 years, mate?
Who knows 6 years from now? I mean, here's the one thing I will predict, which is it will be unprecedented times.
All right, mate. I'll see you in the bar next week. Cheers. Thank you, Robert. And don't worry, listener, there is many more than one of you, and I really appreciate it. And as I mentioned, it was a bourbon drink that Robert shared with us back in episode 9, which is called The Last Debate, which was bourbon, Amaro, and a dash of lime. So that's a wrap on episode 318, the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast. Thanks to Jeff and Robert, but most of all, thank you for putting a dime into your podcasting jukebox, selecting our track, and jiving along with us. I've been your host, Ian Truscott. You can find links to me, Jeff and Robert, and the articles we discussed in the show notes, along with links to our blog, newsletter, and all of our previous episodes at rockstarcmo.com. Next week, Kathy McKnight is back in the studio, and we'll be discussing one of her Bear Essentials articles. And as you heard, Robert will be back in the bar. In the meantime, I want to leave you with this quote from Francis Bacon. There is no comparison between that which is lost but not succeeding and that which is lost by not trying.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Heather Eck hosts an amazing show called Your Radiant Spirit. Heather, tell listeners about the show.
What if the colors you're drawn to, the creative urges you ignore, and the quiet intuitive hits you brush off are actually trying to tell you something? Your Radiant Spirit is the podcast that helps you listen and live with greater clarity and purpose.
And where can people subscribe?
You can find and subscribe at heathereck.com/yourradiantspirit on marketingpodcast.net or search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.